In a market where everybody has AI SDRs, attention is sold to the highest bidder. What is your advantage, basically? Your only advantage is your human AI partnership, basically. And teams that will master that partnership will be the teams that will rise above the noise in 2025 and 2026 and 2030.
I'm Jonathan Gandolf, and welcome to the Content Cocktail Hour, powered by The Juice. Our mission is to squeeze out the deepest secrets of B2B marketing professionals to help you push your brand to the forefront of the industry. Let's raise the glass.
Welcome back to the Content Cocktail Hour. Jonathan here, founder and CEO of The Juice and the host of today's episode of the Content Cocktail Hour. I'm thrilled to be joined by Amos Bar-Joseph of Swan AI. This is going to be a really fun conversation. Amos and I got to meet earlier this week, kind of separate of the podcast, and just have a ton of respect for the way he's thinking about building a business, the way he and his team are thinking about and building AI. I think kind of swimming upstream, maybe paddling upstream out, and no pun intended there with the Swan name, but really excited to dig into the conversation. And Amos, I know you've got an interesting background. Before I ramble for too long, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your story of getting to starting Swan?
Yeah, would love to, and super excited to be here, Jonathan. So thanks for having me. So this is my third venture. I've built from the ground up 2 B2B startups before in the customer communication space. So, raise funds, build the initial sales team, scale to deals, 6-figure deals, selling to some of the biggest enterprises in the world, and eventually to an acquisition. I found myself after 2 exits really feeling empty from within, feeling that this playbook of trying to focus on your valuation rather than creating value is just wearing founders down, and they are always looking to solve the wrong problems using the wrong tools. And basically it's leaving employees with empty promises, customers with half-baked solutions, and just sad. So we're trying to fix that as well as fixing go-to-market. So we have big ambitions here at Swan AI.
It's fascinating. Some of that resonates. I think about my own personal journey in starting The Juice. Quite literally, we picked a name that we wanted to be different, and we just wanted to break through some of the B2B sameness that's out there. We wanted people to raise their eyebrows and could say, the what? When we said it, like, let's break out and let's have some fun, right? Let's smile more. Let's bring more joy to everything. And I think it's been awesome to watch your team as you launch. I'm going to come back to that topic, but Amos, this is the Content Cocktail Hour. So we always ask our guests, not our audience, we ask our guests, what are you enjoying drinking nowadays?
Yeah, so actually I was a bartender, when I was younger. So it's a trick question for me. So a lot of things comes to mind, but my favorite drink right now is Negroni, an Italian drink. So it's Campari. If you're familiar with what is that, it's like very cool drink mixed with gin and some vermouth. So it's like a more alcoholic wine. So it's pretty strong, gets you, fixed really quick. So if you need something at the end of the day and you don't have time to waste on like a glass of wine and you need stronger, I definitely recommend you drink the Negroni.
You're a man of efficiency. I can respect that. Just cut right to the chase, get it strong, get it fast. I love that. I like the way you think. Well, okay, so let's go back to launching Swan, and you mentioned you've had the 2 exits previously. I'd be interested in what's maybe something you've learned from those 2 previous experiences that you're like, all right, we're doing for sure this way again. And maybe what's something you learned from those previous 2 experiences where you're like, I'm going to do it completely differently this time?
Great question. So I'll start with the easy answer, what we've seen that worked, and then I'll move to what we see that didn't work and you need to change it. So in the early stage, it's 100% about talent. Okay, so when you bring the right team members and you create the right synergy, then magic happens. And you take the biggest bet that you take at the early stage is on the people that you bring into the company. And I have like a 30 days rule where if I bring in an executive and in the first 30 days, I don't see significant change in a certain part of the business, then I know that we need to let go of that executive. So it's doubling down on your talent and positioning your entire company at the early stage around them, giving them the autonomy to act on based on their intuition and just set them loose. So that's basically what I will definitely replicate again and again. What I see that is different from building the company, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. One of my earliest companies that we sold to airlines, like huge enterprises. And, we worked with Iberia, LATAM, Singapore Airlines, very famous companies. What was tough there was to penetrate the organization, but it didn't feel like we were oversaturated with competition. it wasn't about that. It was about building a great product or shipping it fast and then having the right sales team to take it to market. But in the market today, SaaS is a super saturated space, and just repeating the same old playbook again and again won't get you to nowhere. Basically, you need to think marketing first, then sales, then product when you start your company. So you need to think about what is the story that you're trying to bring to the table? What is the change that you want to make? I know that sounds cliche, but without it, you just, falling into the sea of sameness. You tried to mention that before, Jonathan. And I feel like you need to reinvent the playbook here, and you need to follow your intuition, and just falling into the same old plays that your competitors are doing. So it's just a matter of who's bidding more for your audience attention. It becomes a bidding war, not like a talent war. And you want to play the talent war.
I love it. I think both the talent point is really good. I'm reminded of the Netflix culture story of they only hire A+ players. And I think the saying was, adequate performance gets generous severance. Like, if you're not having an outsized impact in the first 30 days, then I'm assuming no hard feelings, but at this stage, it has to be that, right? Every dollar is so critical. It has to be that. So I think that's really good. And I love the marketing, sales, product approach. I've shared this story previously, but when we started The Juice, I had a pretty good concept of what we wanted to build, but I felt like I wanted to revalidate that. It was during COVID, so there was just so much was changing so quickly. And I went out and I talked to 100 marketers in 100 days, and they revalidated what we wanted to build, but also really informed some of the periphery of what we were building. But it was interesting because the more you talk to people and you ask them about their pain points, they kind of start selling to themselves, right? Because they're like, oh man, if you could solve that, or if somebody could solve that, I sure would love that, right? And it was very easy is not the right word, but it was very clear who to go back to once we did have the product to actually sell it. Now, I've shared this story previously as well, but we signed our first contract, and then I remember I sat down with an engineer in a conference room and said, hey, I just sold this. Can we build it? Is this what we can do? And I wasn't following that playbook maybe necessarily, but it just kind of stumbled my way into that. It's worked out all right for us. So I love that insight.
Amazing. Yeah, definitely. I feel like this is a great way to look at it, selling your product before you build it. And I feel like the best founders are doing it. But I think, in 2025, you should market your product before you sell it, before you build it. So you start with the demand as the top of the funnel. That way you should focus on top of the funnel. And once you nail your top of the funnel, then you start nailing your sales motion. After you nail your sales motion, then you start nailing your product motion. So it's kind of like 180 degrees, flip it to the other side, basically.
I love that. So I've gotten to see the Swan team. I've participated a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about that marketing first playbook that you're running right now with Swan, and maybe how it's different than the traditional B2B SaaS playbook?
First of all, Swan's inception didn't came from, a product idea or from a specific pain point that we identified. We felt like humanity is actually stepping towards a slippery slope that we want to prevent. We want to stop. We felt like all these AI SDR companies and all this emphasis on automation, is taking sales into a place where it's just machines, controlling machines, trying to convince humans to buy their product. And I don't want to be sold like that. I don't think sellers want to sell like that. And we felt like we want to fight for a future where AI is used to empower the human and is actually in charge of working with the systems, not replacing your humans, right? And so that is a message that we started from. And then we realized, okay, what do we need to build? And we did it kind of like a reverse engineering of that story. And the way that we look at our marketing strategy is not how do we market a product. It's basically how do we tap into the demand of sales leaders and marketing leaders that want to put their human talent first. How do we amplify that movement? How do we create an audience that listen to what we say and want to spread and amplify that voice even further? And so our main focus is about how do we create user-generated content, like person-generated content, not brand-generated content. So person-generated content, whether it's the founder-led marketing or whether it's super fans that we could activate. And so basically it's that people that believe in what the future that we want to build and the change we want to make, and they want to stand behind it and push it even further. And we want to identify those people and give them whatever they need to push that message even further. So it's a different way to look at your marketing completely from doing webinars or doing Google ads.
I love the combination of founder-led and finding those super fans. That feels like it creates a really powerful kind of overlap. So you mentioned the humanity in AI. I think that's really interesting. I've talked to a few folks about, I think AI, sometimes when we're building, the first thing we often focus on is what's the easiest or what's the first thing we can knock out. And I think some of these early iterations of AI technologies are actually just reinforcing bad habits. You mentioned AI SDR. I think there's some AI SDR technology out there that's fine. We can personalize and send more emails faster now. It's like the version of personalization is like first name, right? Or like job function, right? And it's like, is that really like improving what we're doing, or is it just doing the bad things that we're already doing faster and more efficiently and with less humans involved, right? And I think it's really interesting the way you're looking at it with humans at the core of AI, letting AI take care of the systems around the human, but really up-leveling the human piece of how all of this works together. Do you want to just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like we got lost somewhere along the way in automation and sales tech. We were sold by these tech companies with massive marketing budgets that it was all about automation. It's all about volume. It's all about scale. If you go back to the 1980s, the lost art of sales, it was all about making a human connection, right? Deals were closed in a restaurant where a seller turned a stranger into a friend, right? And it was closed by a handshake. My brother sold door-to-door oil paintings, trying to convince the person behind that door that they are not trying to steal something from them. They actually have a valuable thing that they would love. And somewhere along the way, the rise of the machines came, CRMs and sales automation, and sellers eventually found themselves spending 70% of their time working with 14 different tools in their tech stack. Now we're kind of like at a crossroad, basically. There are two PLVs here. One, sales leaders that think that humans are the problem, and we need to replace humans with AI that would scale campaigns even further and would scale the activities that they measure even further. Basically, taking that number from 70% to 100%. Humans working systems trying to convince humans. Or we can choose to take that number down to zero and have sellers spend all their time talking with humans, scaling human connections. And I feel like that's a future that I want to pursue, I want to fight for. And a market where everybody has AI SDRs, attention is sold to the highest bidder. What is your advantage, basically? Your only advantage is your human AI partnership, basically. And teams that will master that partnership will be the teams that will rise above the noise in 2025 and 2026 and 2030.
I love talking this out in real time because there's another kind of theme that I think I'm seeing emerge with the adoption of AI technology and the systems driving people almost to become hermits a little bit with technology as opposed to the human interaction. I think you're now even seeing that internally with teams and businesses and how they use AI. I've heard from several that their big challenge right now is somebody over here is using this AI point solution. Somebody over here is using this AI point solution. This person has this preference on which GPT they use. This person has this custom one they've built. And there's actually, even inside of one business, there's this kind of silos being created of people are now not even communicating internally with their own team on what they should be doing because they've all kind of adopted this individual AI point solution as opposed to, one AI system or one AI platform across the team that then again would allow the humans to actually engage with each other, which sounds crazy to say out loud, but that's the world we're living in.
Definitely. When we try to crystallize from a technical perspective, what is it that we're building at Swan? We envision it as the agentic interface into your go-to-market systems. So that may sound a little bit complex, but you should think, for example, about your phone, right? So before you had your mobile phone, you had a camera, you use your camera as a device, and you would go to your bank and you would try to use your bank to, withdraw money, and you would have a separate, mobile phone just to pick up calls. You would have all these different types of systems. But then came the iPhone with revolutionary interface. So you could interact with all of your apps with a very simple one interface. And so what we're doing is kind of the same that the iPhone did with all these apps. We're trying to do that for your go-to-market system. So you will have one AI agent that will be able to control these systems very intelligently in the way that human beings may not be able to do because there are so many data points to control, so many different workflows and automations to set up. And so it will take care of scaling system so the person could just talk with that agent and spend the rest of their time talking to prospects and customers.
I love that. I'm excited to get my hands dirty on Swan. You and I have talked a little bit about collaborating on our technologies. I'm excited to see it for myself. Okay, you talked earlier about founder-led marketing. Let's maybe talk like day to day, like what is your kind of marketing activity and where's it at on your priority list? Like how do you spend your day to day kind of knowing you're going down this founder-led marketing path? What does that look like for you in reality?
Yeah, I think the hard answer here is like, being a founder. If you're starting a company, then you got to commit 100% to building that company. And that should be your top priority in your life. And same goes with founder-led marketing and, posting on LinkedIn. It should be your number one priority in your company. That's the number one thing that you should care about the most. I spend most of my day either having a lot of inbound tasks coming to me as the CEO, but in every spare second that I have, I'm thinking about content, I'm thinking of ideas, I'm thinking about different types of angles that I could use. And basically, I try to commit to a number of posts a week. And we have so many different types of initiatives outside of LinkedIn that we're pursuing as well, are very interesting. But basically, the secret here is that this should be a number one priority if you're doing that. If you can't commit to that, then founder-led marketing isn't for you.
How do you know if it's working or not, founder-led marketing?
There are two avenues that you should always get your hands on, always, get your pulse on. So the first one is the business metrics. So how many meetings are getting converted out of that? Attribution is hard, but as marketeers, we know that attribution is always hard. So same thing here, there's an attribution challenge, but when you're in early stage or like a series A, series B, then you notice an uptick of meetings booked that you can't really attribute to different types of activities. And you can understand that is coming from founder-led marketing. So for example, we know that our motion is successful because we see that correlation between my LinkedIn posts and an uptick in meeting book on our website. That is one thing. The other thing that we're measuring is audience, which is equally as important as business meetings. And we want to measure how our audience is growing. And you measure audience by multiple factors. So followers, engagement, and whether it's comments or likes, impressions. And basically, this is a fairly easy way to measure because the attribution here between audience and these metrics are very tightly connected. So you can monitor these metrics and understand if you're growing your audience significantly or not. And from our perspective, we see around 40% growth per week over week right now. So it's been amazing so far.
That's awesome. To founders or people who are thinking about becoming founders out there, what's the one piece of advice you'd have for them as they're getting started?
I would say that the number one characteristic that predict success in that space, if you want to build a business, is grit and consistency. If you're a person that can commit to something and pursue it relentlessly, then you could be an amazing founder. And even if you're a fail, 99 first attempts, the 100th will work. That's what it means to be a founder.
I tell our team all the time, what's critical is that we have a bias toward action. Even if the action is wrong, we'll learn faster if we're acting faster. And I think that's so critical. One of my favorite sayings is just do the damn work. I think so many times we get excited about talking about the work. I think the people that are out there winning are the people that are just willing to do the dirty work day after day after day. I think that's oftentimes overlooked on the founder journey.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, Amos, we always end these conversations. Maybe you've already shared or previewed a few of them, but we always like to end these conversations. What's an unpopular opinion that you have as it pertains to B2B sales or marketing?
I feel like today, founders, when that flows down to sales and marketing, are more focused on their investors and their valuation and their stock price rather than their customers and their employees. And the impact of that is that sales and marketing are focused on growth at all costs. And we're trying to just buy eyeballs with just more and more money. And it's always about, okay, I have these resources. How do I deploy these resources in the most efficient way? That's how marketeers learn how to act on data and how to pursue their initiatives. And I feel like that's not the way. We shouldn't think about how should we deploy our resources in the most efficient way. We should think about our buyers and our customers and how they want to buy, what are the most compelling ways that they are looking for to search for new products, to explore and to understand new value propositions, and how can we adjust to what they're looking for and not try to look at them as just data points or just records in a CRM. We just need to look at them as relationships and people. And I feel like it's a big mind shift that we need to do as marketeers, basically, when we look at our go-to-market strategy.
I've shared this previously as well, but I think one of the big learnings for me throughout my own kind of entrepreneurial founder journey here is you have to love the problem, like the customer. I always say the problem, but I think a lot of times, myself included, I have found myself enamored with building the business as opposed to solving the problem. And I think that's when I've seen myself get stuck is I love, like you said, how do we deploy resources more efficiently? How do we operationalize this, productize that? And it's like, you get so enamored with the idea of actually building the business and the problem solving that is building an efficient business that you fall out of love with the actual problem you're solving for your customers. And I think then, I find myself, I'm like, oh, I need to go talk to 30 customers this month. I need to go talk to 20 customers. I need to go use the product and experience the pain that they are experiencing. And I think that's something that I constantly remind myself is like, as a founder, like you have to love the problem and thus your customers versus just loving business building.
100%. I feel like where you're looking for exponential growth, the answer doesn't lie in the data. It doesn't lie in the numbers or the resources that you're trying to allocate. The answer lies within delighting your buyers and customers. And if you will focus on that, then you will find that exponential curve if you unfold every rock just to delight your buyers and customers.
That's so good. We'll end on that note. I think that's so powerful. Amos, if people want to learn more from you or learn more about Swan, what's the best way to do that?
You could go to getswan.com and check our website. And, we're uploading our manifesto soon, so you'll be able to learn what we're all about as well. And of course, my DMs are open on LinkedIn. So I'm happy to chat about go-to-market or AI or Negroni and cocktails as well.
I love it. That's reason enough, everybody, to go follow Amos. Amos, thank you so much for joining today. Until next time, cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining the Content Cocktail Hour powered by The Juice. If you want to see more episodes or more resources curated for your role, join us on app.thejuicehq.com. See you next time, same place. Cheers.